right. So we're going to look at number 1. Looking at number 1. How do I multiply negative 4i times 8i?
Negative 4 times 8.
Yeah, what's negative 4 times 8?
Negative 32.
Negative 32.
I squared.
And I have an I squared. And according to our notes, what does I squared mean? Negative 1. So negative 32 times negative 1 is positive 32, and that's our answer. Yeah, that wasn't bad. Let's look at number 5. It says negative 5i to the third. So how many times should I write negative 5? 3 times. I have negative 5i times negative 5i times negative 5i. What is negative 5 times negative 5 times negative 5? Negative 125. Okay. What do these two i's give you? I squared. What's an I squared? A negative 1. So these two i's, just the two of them, they give you a negative 1. And then we still have the I at the end. Did you guys see what I did there? So I could see 3 i's, but I knew that 2 of them were going to give me a negative 1. So I went ahead and I took the 2. So it would be positive 125i. Did somebody say this is complex? This is complex. Numbers. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to go over those, but we're going to try some more in the meantime. Yeah. Yeah, they're not bad. All right, let's look at number 9. Yeah. Would you rather do it on your own, or you want me to do it with you? All right. So on number 9, don't write this down. Do not write this down. Just look up here. If I didn't, you're still going to do the problem? Okay. If I said to do 5 times 3 times 2, don't write this down. How would you multiply that in your head? Yeah, you would do the first 2 and then you would do the next one, right? That's how we multiply. So if you have 3 terms, you can't say, oh, I'm going to do it all 3 at the same time, because we just can't do that. We do 2 and then we do the next one. So that's how we're going to approach this problem too. We're going to multiply the first 2, and then when we get the answer for that, then we can do the next one, okay? So negative 6 times negative 3 is 18, and then we have I squared, and what does that really mean? So 18 times negative 1 is a negative 18. Okay, so we have negative 18 times negative 10 minus 9i. And so now what do I do? Now I distribute. So negative 18 times negative 10 is 180. Negative 18 times negative 9i, 162i. Okay, let's jump over to number 14. Jump into 14. Okay. Now, the reason they're putting all these in groups is because complex numbers have a real portion and an imaginary portion. So when the number's written like this, they're saying this is one complex number minus another complex number. That's why they put them in parentheses, okay? Now the first one does not have anything in front of the parentheses, so we can go ahead and just write it like that, 1 minus I. But since we're subtracting the second complex number, we need to distribute the negative. So what do I get when I distribute that negative? Negative 4, positive 8i. And now we're going to go ahead and combine like terms. So I have a real number of positive 1 and a real number of negative 4, negative 3. And I have an imaginary negative 1 and an imaginary positive 8. Plus 7, good. Okay. How is let's see. How is number 11 different from number 14? How is number 11 different from number 14? Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing in between there. There's no plus in between there. There's no minus in between there. So this is a multiply problem, which means we have to FOIL it. Yeah, we have to FOIL it. Now, are we okay with FOILing, or do we prefer using a box to multiply? FOIL? Okay. So we're going to do, for number 11, we're going to do first times first. Awkward. Anybody? 30? Okay. Thank you. Then we have outside, so negative 10 times negative 7i, positive 70. Then we have inside, negative 12i. And then we have last, 4i times negative 7i, negative 28i squared. Okay. And so negative 28i squared is really a negative 28 times a negative 1. So that's really a positive 28. Okay. So now we're going to combine like terms. We have a real number of 30 and a real number of 28. So we have 58. And then we have an imaginary 70 and an imaginary negative 12. Plus 58i. Okay. Yeah, they're not too bad. All right, for number 7, are you ready?
No. Maybe. No. 30, we're gonna write T.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. I'm almost done. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38.
Let's do number 8 like that.
Yeah, let's do number 8 like that. Okay, so I drew out 38 eyes. If you're not doing it, I'm not mad about it because you'll figure it out in a second. So what do we know about eyes?
They are
That two of them
make a negative 1.
Two of them make a negative 1. So I have negative 1, negative 1, negative 1, negative 1, negative 1. So before I keep going, can somebody tell me how many negative 1s I'm going to have? More than 16? 19. How do you know? Wait, tell me. So how do you know? You got to listen, or else you're going to have to draw 73 eyes for the next one. So how do you know that we have 19 negative 1s? Okay, so here's what we're going to write. We're going to say 38 divided by 2 is 19 pairs of I. So what that means is we have negative 1 multiplied by itself 19 times. Negative 1, negative 1, negative 1, negative 1, negative 1, 19 times. If I multiply a negative 19 times, am I going to get a negative result or a positive result? I'm going to get a negative, because how many negatives do you need that cancel each other out? 2 negatives could cancel each other out. 4 negatives would cancel each other out. 6 negatives would cancel each other out. If you have an even number of negatives, they'll cancel. If you have an odd number of negatives, your answer is going to stay negative. What happens if I multiply 1 repeatedly? 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. It's not going to change. So my answer for this is going to be negative 1. So I had 19 pairs of I. That means I had negative 1 multiplied 19 times. That's going to keep it at negative 1. Okay? All right. Before we do the next one, at the top of your page, I want you to write I to the 39th. I to the 39th. At the very top. Oh,
Frozen.
that's cool.
All are you recording?
Yeah.